share my screen and bring up the PowerPoint presentation.
It's
we'll
not
go from the beginning.
Don't worry. Yeah, so it's more for information really. Yeah, so hello everybody. I'm Sarah Martin-Denham from the University of Sunderland, and I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about Pull Up a Chair, which is a project that I started pre-COVID, and it's a 5-day project where you do intense it's not intense, that sounds wrong. You do alternative research approaches, so it's using creative methods to support children and families to share their views on what would work for them and improving their lives and outcomes. So yeah, so there's a link there when you get the slide deck to my publications. There'll be things I might refer to that you're interested in. But yes, just next slide, James, please. Be great. Right, so to a bit of scene setting. So I'm an ex-primary school teacher, and I didn't say this to the last group, but I really struggled in school. I am neurodivergent, and I found reading particularly hard. So I learned to really read when I was in secondary school, really struggled with it in primary. So I became interested when I was a teacher in children who were just struggling for all kinds of reasons to remain in school. That's kind of carried on as I've had children. My interest in particularly in the rates of exclusion and how they've been rising in recent years. So that's what my research is predominantly on: school exclusion, childhood adversity, children's social care as well, and also linking data. So what you can see here is the rates of suspension is when children can be sent home but are allowed to return, and children can have 45 days equivalent a year of suspensions. A permanent exclusion is where they are no longer allowed back into that school unless it's overturned at appeal. So what we know from the year 2021-22, so the year before the data you see on the screen, is there were equivalent of 2,999 reported suspensions and permanent exclusions each school day equivalent in England. So every day, 2,999 children are suspended or permanently excluded. Now, we know for some of those suspensions, permanent exclusions, they happen because children need to be safe. It's affecting the safety of them or others. But there are many of the suspensions and permanent exclusions that I strongly feel, through the conversations I've had with 400 children, lots of parents and lots of professionals, that they're avoidable. So it's what can we do about these preventable exclusions? So 299 equivalent per year 21-22. Looking at this 22-23 data you see there, the daily equivalent of reported is now 4,191. So we have a real huge problem on our hands. We already did, but it's getting worse. What you can also see here is that it's predominantly an issue. The highest rates are in the north of England, and in particular the northeast. So that's kind of why I'm doing this work. This is why I'm doing Pull Up a Chair, because I think until we start supporting local areas who are trying their best to listen to children and parents to find out what works for them, we're not going to do very well to help them to remain in school.
Right, so Mandy just put a hand up. It's gone down. Was it an accidental hand, Mandy, or were you asking a question?
Yeah, sorry. It was just to say that the slides aren't moving on for me. Is it the same for everybody, or is it something for me? I've just got DFE data ranking orders.
Yeah, that's where you should be now. That's right. So this is showing the highest ranking excluding authorities in England. That's right. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Right. So next slide. See if this changes for you. Has that changed?
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you.
No, it's okay. Right, so this is just a quick whistle stop. So how it started, 2018, I was commissioned to do a piece of research in Sunderland, the Sunderland City Council, to find out why they had such high socio-emotional mental health needs for children with education, health and care plans. At this time as well, there was also a lens on their rise in suspensions and permanent exclusions. A huge piece of work. It there's 3 publications, all are freely accessible from that work, and it really focused on what are the enablers and barriers to mainstream skill. So happy to share links. It's on that first slide deck you can see there. When I did that piece of work, there was so much in it about the impact of isolation booths. It came out that there were children I spoke to who'd been in isolation every day for 3 years of their secondary education. Lots of other factors around the use and practice of managed moves, but also there was some good practice around reasonable adjustments. So it was mixed. I felt that as much as it was full of child voice, parent voice, professional voice, when I talked about those reports and put the quotes up and did all the things you do, you weren't seeing the child, you weren't getting the goose pimples, you weren't getting the same level of empathy that you got when you were in that space doing that conversation. So I had a think and I thought, right, if I can get some funding, I want to bring children together. So I brought 2 groups of children together in Sunderland from Alternative Provision, and 5 days doing creative arts activities, talking to them, building connections, talking about their experiences. And I was amazed to find that they would speak to camera about their experiences. And we made little origami chairs and we called it Pull Up a Chair. So that's where Pull Up a Chair came from. And that was phase 1. Did phase 1, and the film is freely available. I'll put the link to it in the chat box for you so you've got it. And Pull Up a Chair, it just got legs. I think it's free and it helps you see how well children can articulate how they feel, what their needs are, what they need to improve their lives. The children wanted to keep going. Other children wanted to get involved. So the next thing was this working with 130 children. We did a national exhibition at the Glass Centre in Sunderland, working with 4 artists. And it kind of has cascaded, as you can see there. Phase 4 is a big one. That was 28 children from the ages of 4, children who've been excluded at the age of 4, all the way through to 16-year-olds. And together we created 8 films. So we had the original phase 3 film. We did 8 more films there for phase 4. Then the parent voice was missing. So there's parent voice as well. And then further education, which I'm going to show you today, is these children were young people from 16 to 21, some with an education healthcare plan, some care experienced, reflecting back on what would have supported them through mainstream school. The value of Pull Up a Chair is the ethics to horrendous, the governance around parents and children, the legal protections around sharing visuals, sharing creative art, sharing film of them speaking, and that kind of, there were children who talked about things like suicide ideation, which is not in the films. So using that, all of that management is hard, but actually what you see, what you're going to see today when I show you a couple of these films, is what comes out of it is so powerful. And a lot of these things the children talk about they need are completely possible. Like Christine was saying, these are easy fixes that could be done to make that difference. Phase 7 is a blankets tour in England at the moment. If you have me on LinkedIn, you'll have seen that. So we've made a crochet blanket of 2,999 crocheted squares. I have some here. That's tour in England to help local areas bring down their exclusion rates. We're currently making 4,191 of these. If anybody can crochet or knows anybody, please send me an email. Would love you to help out. The last phase at the moment is Northumberland County Council. And from the other work on Pull Up a Chair, they've asked me to work with a group of 12 children not in school. So to find out what education, what learning needs to look like for them, what school needs to look like for them. It might not even be, it's not even a school, but what is it? Where would they learn? How could we support them to feel like they belong in school? So that'll happen in March, and that project with the new blanket, 3rd of July at the University of Sunderland. You're welcome to come and join for a big inclusive education conference, which is free. You're welcome to come and join that event there. So the power of Pull Up a Chair is, for me, is it's their project, it's their resources. They direct what they want to do, what they want to say, how they want to do it. All the words in the films are their words. And it did help them feel empowered, and it gave us an insight into their lived experience that we can't presume to know. Right, so we're going to we're going to watch a film now. So the link to the site is here. So this is what it looks like. At the top it'll say adverse childhood experiences here. So that's what it looks like on the top. A bit about who we are, who I am, and then I tell you what we'll do. We'll watch yeah. So at the bottom you can see there's early years, and what you get in each of these is you get the link to the film across 3 themes: recognizing and responding to adversity, belonging, relationships and connections, and finding solutions. There's a free training resource, which is all the words of the children. It's about 4.5 hours per theme, and you even get the PowerPoint slides. It's all free, and this is to help inclusion in local areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch film 3 together, James, if that's okay. There it is. If you need to step away, please do. There shouldn't be anything in here that's going to upset you, but you might have been experienced exclusion. James, there's no sound.
Sorry. Oh my God.
It's just like, this is what you have dreams about, isn't it, the day before? What's going to go wrong? It did work before.
It came on, right, sorry, bear with me a second. Right, okay. Let me just come out, and I'm not showing my screen at the moment, am I?
No.
This is something this is some issue I think I've got with my computer, because it's saying that everything's not responding. Bear with me a second. Right, let me have another go. Right, can everyone see the screen all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back to the beginning. And can you hear that? Do you hear that music? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Hallie, before we open the box, could you tell the camera about what your special job is?
A mindful warrior.
And what does that mean, being a mindful warrior? What's your job?
It's to take care of the mindful area.
And why is that important to you?
Because it's meant to just be detected.
And does it help? What does it help you to do when you're in the mindful area?
It helps you calm down, I think. We make these classrooms brilliant too. Everyone loves each other. I love the teacher. Everyone kind. Everyone here loves me. In the same class with one of my friends. Because sometimes I can work with him. Everything. The teachers.
Teachers. And what is it about these teachers that makes them so good?
I don't know.
Do they understand you?
Yeah.
And you know your puppet that you have there?
Yeah.
So on one side is you.
This was me, like, this morning.
And that was a wolf this morning. Why? What was this morning?
Because at playtime I fell off the climbing thing, the rope climbing thing, and you know how I don't have my glasses on?
Ah, yeah.
I threw them,
No.
stepped on them,
Oh.
punched them, and ripped off the arm.
So,
Both of them. They're like armless glasses.
and was that because the wolf came out?
Yeah, and then I got back into class, get on with my work, and I was like, turn back into my normal self.
And what helped you turn back into your normal self?
I don't know. I just got on with my work. I just make sure that I have lots of friends that'll be able to make us feel like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. I'm not the only one who's sad at the moment. I'm not the only one who's like feeling terrible.
So is talking with your friends important?
Yeah. So that's a little snippet of one of the films. You think at the start you're not going to meet a group of children who've been excluded from school and get them to so clearly articulate how they feel. And for me, that was all about how they're feeling, how they're experiencing things, and the impact on them, really. Like, they completely get it. What I'm going to show you now is a second film while we're on a roll. And this is a very different film. So this was a film, there was a donor giving £11.5 million to a school, to secondary schools in Sunderland to improve GCSE outcomes. And they wanted to find out how we could improve schools. So as part of a wider piece of work with 84 interviews and other data analysis and things, I did a pull up a chair with in post 16. So if you can share back, James, if that's okay. So this film is on the main, when you click on that IRN, that Interdisciplinary Research Network space, it's on the first screen. So it's above the early years and secondary and parents tabs. So let's watch this one. All their words again about their experiences. See if this works. So I'm going to stop at 6 minutes, James. So I'll give you a wave.
Yeah, and is it
You
this one
see
at the
there?
top?
That's it. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So they chose all the resources. It's fully scripted by them. Let's have a look.
We all made this box, and on the outside it explains what other people saw in us during comp, and then on the inside we've wrote down what they've missed. I'm smart, I'm loyal, I like drawing.
One box doesn't fit all.
We want every young person who leaves secondary school
To reach their full potential.
To rise to their ambitions.
To be ready to take flight on the next part of their journey. There can be many obstacles on our paths in secondary school.
I was always trying to fit in,
It can be easy to be blinded.
Not to see us as individuals.
but on my journey through secondary school,
There were places and faces that supported me.
places I could go to where I felt safe.
A space to go when things get too much.
A place to be able to calm down.
Or be able to talk to somebody who can help.
A chill room.
When I was in primary, they had place to be, and I used to go there like every day if I got bullied or if something's happened that made us feel sad, and the teacher that was in there would help us. So I think secondary schools should also have that, because it will help all the children to like process like a lot of their feelings in there. So I think place to be will be a really good improvement of schools.
There's a power in relationships with people you can trust.
Having somebody who knows your story.
Who you can trust and who is trained to support you.
My form tutor, Miss Warner, she was there for me through everything. when stuff was happening at home, she would be the one I would talk to, and she would sit me down and have a big massive conversation about it, try and make me feel better, and try and make me say that even though stuff was going on, that there's still good things. And when people were saying stuff and doing stuff, I would be the one to go up to her and tell her, and she would sit me down and talk to me, and then she would either try and talk to the head of year or try and talk to the students themselves.
I had a lot of support from my teachers when I had a difficult time with my family. If I'm down and if I need help, they're there. I was really upset at the time, and this helped us through a lot of stuff. Yeah, it did change my life when I could have somebody to talk to. It's so important we've got enough support.
I never had a happy life. Being in school with that happening made it harder to communicate. Always felt alone and a hard time making friends, and never had help with that. And I feel like that should be changed. Someone like the social worker I worked with should always be in school because they actually really helped.
An everything officer, so you can go to them for support for everything and everything. An everything officer is somebody who can help you mental health support wise and help you through school and help deal with somebody who's bullying you maybe or picking on you. Could help you with anxiety, you could just be having a bad day and you could go speak to them. Someone who you could go out to trust and talk to about anything. Someone like that would help a lot of people and myself with coping through school and with mental health, with stress of exams and things like that.
I think everyone should have a teacher like Miss Warner to talk to. I could leave lesson and go talk to her. I was allowed to. Even if she was in a lesson, she would still come out and talk to us. And I think every single student needs a teacher like that, because if not, then we're all just going to struggle. And the more we're struggling, the more education gets down instead of up through the roof.
Secondary school needs to be a place where we feel
safe, where we feel secure.
A place where we keep each other safe in school and outside of school. A place where we feel empowered.
Safe to be who we are.
Empowered to share who we are with the world.
To do whatever our hearts desire.
In 2021, I made 2 of my own songs. And when it got to year 11, I got a random bag that I owned and decided to put speakers inside of it. I teach myself how to build speakers. No one teach me to do that, and no one teach me to make music. And I think school should have clubs where you can make whatever you want and be able to learn by making stuff that you have ideas for. There are more people out there like me who have hidden talents and opportunities that people won't be able to see, when people should see that they can do that. And if the people right now are having the opportunities to do what they want, that's what makes them them. And you can't take that away from them, because that's how you make a person and how they be happy, by creating stuff, thinking about stuff, drawing stuff. I don't think one way of teaching works for everyone. Every young person is different and learns in different ways. Having choice in what I learn and how I learn. So at the end of this journey,
I've got everything I need to help me on my next adventure.
To help me get off to the flying start.
So I can be who I really am.
look at what I can do.
Look at what I can do.
Look at what I can do.
Look at what we can do. Together we can build a school that will work for everyone.
Brick by brick.
Building on strong foundations.
Foundations that will help us spread our wings.
And get off to a flying start.
In achieving our dreams and ambitions. I'm going to be a mechanic.
I'm going to be a mechanic.
I'm going to be a beautician.
I'm going to be a manga designer.
You pause there, James? Oh, I've got all goose pimply. I do every time I watch it. It's fabulous. Now, what's important to say is those young people were a representative of a group of children in the college who were really quiet, who were really struggling to attend classes, and they wanted to get underneath why, like what were their support needs. And when we met them, the first time we met them, they all came in, they were all separate, they had never met each other. And we were told that Thomas would stay 10 minutes and then he'd probably leave. He wouldn't stay. But I found out beforehand he loved Lego. So I went in my loft, got my Lego out, found out other children beforehand liked Kit Kats, J2O, which you see in the film. So I bring all of that in, and Thomas stayed 5 days. Jonathan with the really nice haircut at the end, the nice hairstyle. He didn't look like that at the start. He had no friendships. He ended up with 3 good friends from that group who he was then, on the 5th day, he was sat on a sofa chatting with. And there's just something really powerful about bringing them together. The wings were their idea. The beach was their idea. And if you can do anything, get some of those bricks off Amazon. If you're doing any engagement work with children, young people, because they absolutely loved them, all their work. So yeah, fabulous. So next slide, please, James. Please get in touch if you want to do a pull-up chair. I think they're not as expensive as you would think. I think it comes out about 15,000 per film, or per series of films, which isn't too bad. Okay, so if you could just go to slide 5 for me, James. Thank you. So this is from the Pull Up a Chair parent film. Oh, yeah, from the Pull Up a Chair parent films. I worked with a large group of parents who's had children excluded from school. And it was linked to all my research that I've done so far, including the Pull Up a Chair with Children. And I was talking to them, it was actually using little Russian dolls, about the risk and protective factors. So what I did is they drew an image of their child in the middle. That's not a very complimentary image of their child because I've met them. But anyway, they draw the image of the child. And then in the green around that, what that is, it's all the protective factors. I got them to think about, what is it in your child's life that you think helps them be who they want to be, that protects their mental health, that protects them in school? And they just really quickly draw them, think about them, write them. And you can see in there, it's got things like qualifications I want to work towards, good friends, boyfriends, psychotherapy, resources, good education, health care plan for purpose, stable family. So what you can then talk about is, how do we strengthen those things? How do we make sure the psychotherapy can keep going? How do we make sure our medication is checked and is suitable? So we think about together, and you can see there's one next is I had about 8 parents doing this. And the next one is, what are the risk factors? So this child's already been permanently excluded from school. What are the risks around that child? And what was good about this is they're going, well, actually a big risk for my child is sleep. When they don't get good sleep, they struggle more in school. And then the parent doing the one next to them saying, you can see they've got sleep on theirs, is saying, have you tried this? So something about what we want to do together is identify the risks, and then you look, right, how do we reduce them? So you've got that parent's got meltdown, shutdown. How can we prevent them? So how can we take things out of that red disc and put more things into the green? On the outside is really thinking about the impact on the wider, beyond the child, so the impact on the parents, siblings as well, often overlooked. And it was a really beautiful way of supporting them to think about the risks. One parent talked about her child being really easily led and there being a lot of county lines in the area. So it's like, okay, well, what can we do about that? What do you think we could do to make that less of a risk for your child? So that's a really nice, easy, and you'll see that in one of the parent films, them doing that activity as well. Okay, next slide, James, please. I'm determined I'm going to leave space for questions, so keep me on track.
Got 14 minutes left, so I think there's plenty of time.
Oh, that I can relax a bit. Brilliant. Please ask any questions in the chat. So theographs, I don't know if theographs are really used a lot in health. And what it is, when I have a conversation with a parent, I realised if we could put that child's experience in a line across their childhood, we can probably pinpoint and identify the key points where we could have intervened and done something differently. So this one here, and these are all from publications. If you're interested, email me and I can send you the publication to relate to, which will have other examples in. So this is about drug use and knife use for children in the excluded population. So when I met with this child, obviously it's a fake name, Luca, I had a conversation, and it was about their experience. So what had happened, they were, this is really common for many, they were really fine in primary school, often down to having their own teacher, having a consistent classroom, not having loads of moves, but coming up that transition to secondary, for some children who really rely on the stability that a primary school kind of model offers, this young person then started having detentions. Now, when you unpicked it, in his year 7, his aunt died. Now, his aunt was his mother figure. His mother wasn't around. His aunt was his mother figure. He couldn't cope. And he hated shouting, and he was grieving. Then at the same time, the school became a multi-academy trust. There was a change of leadership, obviously, and then they had this zero tolerance approach. So he's struggling with his grief. He then isn't concentrating in class. He's sent to isolation, which you can see there. And you can see he's moved. He's moved from one school to another. He has 3 secondary schools, and he ends in AP. So it's like when you look at that line of that child and you think, okay, where did it go wrong? And it certainly went wrong. Year 7. So what could have been done differently in year 7? Is there a training need for staff? Is there enough, is there enough connection with bereavement services? How do we know this child's had a bereavement? So if you go to the next one for me, James, please. Then we've got this one, you can see a bit more advanced than the first one. This was done later. This case absolutely broke my heart, really. So the parent makes referral preschool concerned about speech and language development. The parents requested education, health and care plan in year 4. You can see that. So the green is the positive interactions and the reds are the negatives when something negative happens. So you can see there in year 4, in the family lane, if you like, the parent requests an EHCP, but school 1, number 8 here, say no, you can't apply for education, health and care plan, you're not going to get it. So in this instance, the school were making a judgment saying you're not going to get an education, health and care plan, don't apply. So they didn't. There was then an ed psych assessment, but by 11, so in year 6, the SENCO then decides we need to go for an education, health and care plan for this child, but it's rejected. The child gets an autism diagnosis. The parent had withheld that they had the autism diagnosis, thinking that was the best interest of the child, but the child doesn't understand why they're feeling so different to everybody else, becomes suicidal. So the parent tells them, they then assault another child, and there's a suspension. And then you can see from 17 all the way through to 35, there are a series of suspensions and permanent exclusions for this young person. There's a diagnosis of ADHD when the child is in year 9. And it's just 3 school moves. And then if you look at number 47, which is the last one on the plot, it is green, and they get an education, health and care plan at the age of 16. Now, in your head, logically looking at this, you're thinking, right, what were the points of intervention in here? Like, what was the point where something differently could have been done? So there you go. That's just an example. It is a lot of work. It was done for a publication. But if there's an issue in a local area, and you say you just did this with children who'd had a permanent exclusion and plotted, you don't have to do it using this method, but what are the risks? Where are the risks? And where's the point in time where we need to disrupt? So from the work I've done, transitions particularly important between not in school, preschool to nursery, nursery to reception, reception to key stage, early years to key stage 1. All of those significant, huge transitions are points where we need to be making sure we're getting it right for children. Okay, next slide, James, please. Right, this is from my PhD. It's massive. I wouldn't even look at it, it's huge. But basically, to sum it up in 3 slides, and then we'll take questions. I took all of my research on school exclusion, so all of my multiple conversations I've had with children, the pull up a chair film content, the research reports, the policy briefs, the journal articles, everything, and I had to put it all together, and I did an analysis of it as a whole. And this will be no surprise to you. So thinking about the protective factors, there are 4 protective factors for children to ensure they remain and thrive in school. At the core is that enduring relationship, which we know it's across the films, it's across my publication. So children are more likely to do well in school if they belong and they have a connection through relationships in school. In the know, where there's knowledgeable staff who know about the Equality Act, who know about the Children and Families Act, who know those legal obligations, are more likely to succeed. Assessment and identification of SEND. We've got lots of children waiting too long for assessment. So what can we do? I suppose if we know it's going to be 3 years, we can't wait 3 years. What can the school be doing now based on what they do know about that child's needs? Doing the right thing, so putting in place those reasonable adjustments, which is not an isolation booth, that is not a reasonable adjustment. Might be for some children who want that and need that space, but for most children, as a punishment, I spoke to children who were self-harming, they were scratching their faces, they were pulling hair out because of the length of time they've been in isolation. So next slide, please, James. The risk factors that came out of this. National policies that allow things like isolation. So we've got lots of national guidance that says should or could. So it's not mandating particular things to happen in school. You've got there we've got lots of children who are kind of sitting under the radar. It's the behaviours seen, but it's not understanding, well, what's going on, what's that kind of the root cause of what's happening. What are the parents saying? What are the children saying? And actually, are we identifying this as something rather than just going, well, it's just the way they behave? Sink or swim, this is about really around transition. So how are we supporting those transitions for children? So the minute to minute transitions, the hour to hour, the school day, the school to after school, the big transitions, and how we're making those reasonable adjustments, and other staff adequately trained. Set up to fail is just children who, we have lots of children in mainstream who, because of all of the above I've talked about, they're going to get sanctions. They can't cope in a classroom, so they do things to get themselves out of that situation often. Challenging times is just the bereavement and the other things that are going on that impact. So drug use, county lines, particularly in the area I'm in, where I do my research, there's a lot of community challenges around the children as well. So the last one, and then we can do questions.
We got in the last 5 minutes, Sarah.
Yeah, just the last one really quickly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to end up on a happy note, if that's okay. So the last one, let's forget the rest. New beginnings. So when we get it right, and I think this is kind of telling children, when we get them in the right provision, how can we do that sooner? So getting them in the right space where they need to be. So yeah, I can take questions, comments. Happy for you to connect offline. If you think there's anything you'd like to develop in your local areas or take forward, more than happy to support. But yeah. Leslie.
I have a lot to say for myself today, Sarah. I'm apologising every time I put my hand up. I think one of my phrases of the year is joining the dots. So in terms of everything you've learned and everything you know about how to get it right, joining that up with providers and services, so you get that team around the school, team around the child approach, and responding to children's needs in a positive way. It's that getting other people engaged in your approach and your learning, isn't it? So how have you got experience of how you've managed to do that?
So at the moment, in the local area where lots of these children are, we are linking health, education and children's social care. I feel like the bit that's missing is everyone's holding lots of data, but it's all in separate organisations. So we're linking their data. So we've got all the qualitative stuff, we've done loads, but by linking, it's like the community services data set, accident and emergency, all of that, because then we can do a more detailed analysis of where we need to, so that the risk factors. So it's, but it just, Yeah, so that's where we're going
Yeah.
with the that's a huge hole,
Yeah.
I think.
And I think jumping from that to it's like policy into practice, isn't it? You've triggered my thinking around things like there's the National PINS project, which is about working with primary schools. There's the autism in schools, and whilst those are specific cohorts, if it works for them, it works for everybody, doesn't it? So so schools thinking along these lines, and services engaging with schools on projects like the PINS, the autism in schools, and the work that areas are doing around reworking the neurodevelopmental pathways and things, and that support the Thrive approach in the NHS, the Anna Freud and the Tavistock. If we knit it all together, we're going to change. We're going to change people's lives, aren't we? So, for me, that is listening to you. That's my priority. Going away and plugging this in to PINS and transforming care and autism in schools and the dynamic support database for children who are neurodiverse, and also the gateway process for children who some of the children on your film, they're at risk, and that system of working together is supposed to be there to do something to address that. And I think if they use what you've learned, we'll up the ante. So it's exciting to hear about it. Thank you.
No, keep in touch, Leslie. If I can do anything, it'd be great to know how you get on.
Oh, you might wish you hadn't said that, but is your email address in the chat?
Yeah, I'll put it back in. It is there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've got I've put the in the chat, I've put a feedback form, if people could fill that who are having to leave just now. And we've just got Rachel and Mandy that have got their hands up. I think they're wanting to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I really enjoyed the film and the topics, and I can see how that would prevent some children sort of falling out of education. I just wondered if you'd done any work around getting children back into education, especially children with autistic burnout.
Yeah, so in my first piece of work I did, I recommended assessment hubs where children could go and so when they're just starting to struggle in school, they'd go and have it's mental health support, diagnostic support if they need it. So I've done stuff with assessment hubs, and I've just written up an article on conversation with parents who'd access those, which if you email me, Rachel, I'm happy to share that with you.
Thank you.
And then obviously I've got the pupil referral units. It seems to be that there's a bottleneck, so they seem to be going in but not coming back out. Like Christine said, it's like they go into this alternative provision or specialist provision, but because there's shortage of places, not all children are getting back into mainstream schools, sometimes because of their experiences when they've been in there. They're just feeling it.
I was more thinking of children at home, because I'm in Devon. There's a lot of children that are at home with autistic burnout that not receiving any education.
Yeah, it's the same here. I'm doing a project with Northumberland County Council, so if you want to email me, it's a pull up a chair film, and I don't know which children are involved, but I'm happy to have a conversation about how you could do something similar in Devon to find out from your cohort of children, because sometimes it's not easy to replicate in different areas because the provision's so different. I'm happy to have a conversation with you offline, Rachel, if you just send me an email.
Yeah.
Just Mandy had just asked a question. I'm aware we have sort of gone over slightly, but Mandy wanted to ask something.
Well, it was more really to share, but I'm sure we haven't got time. But it was just to say that we've introduced a transition support program for our autistic young people from key stage 2 to 3, and the impact that having a trusted adult transition, so they work with them in year 6 in primary and then transition with them to year 7. We're only in the first year, but the outcomes at the moment are, I suppose the tale will be when our transition support workers pull out at the end of this term, but the success we've had in managing that transition has been pretty kind of impactful. Anyway, I won't talk anymore because I realise we need to go.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's great. And I don't know if information can be shared around the groups. That would be great. Mandy, I'd be interested to know more about that.
Yeah, we're working on kind of finalising our data for the end, which won't be to the end of March. But yeah, that's not a problem. Thank you.
Much.
Okay, thanks a lot for everyone for coming. Just a reminder, that's the end of the session. You don't have to rejoin the main link. I could see a few people popping up from other groups into there. So thanks all for coming, and please do fill in the feedback, the evaluation form if you can. Brilliant, thank you.
James, thank you for everything. You've been really great. Sorting out the tech.
Thank you.
I can't believe that that once we got the actual issue sorted, my computer started to die. I mean, it was just going not